Hello, welcome to Grid Live NASCAR pre-race program, the Hollywood Casino 400 from Kansas Speedway. Second race in the round of 12 sees three former winners of the race below the cut line. 2024 race winner Ross Chastain is 12th behind the cut line right now in the round of 12. The 2023 winner Tyler Reddick says 23 points below the cut line. He wants to get 23.11 above that cut line. And of course, the 2022 winner, Bubba Wallace, sits 27 points below the cut line, with Austin Cindric, the other man, 19 points. And the 2024 race spoiler, Ross Chastain, his first win of the season last year as a non-playoff driver in the playoffs. Will we see that again here in Kansas for the third time in 4 years? I'm Joe Samdiego. With me, we got Matthew Bro. We're previewing this race to see which driver is going to clinch a spot in the round of 8, joining Ryan Blaney. Before we continue on, a big thank you to our Patreon investors, Colin, Deshelle, Mark, Robin, David, and Matthew, for investing in the Grid Network each and every month. Link in the video description and brand new as well. This QR code, you could scan that QR code, invest into the Grid Network as well that way. So encourage everyone, take the time to invest in the Grid Network. Join Colin, Deshelle, Mark, Ron, David, and Matthew for investing in the Grid Network. And of course, we can't do this without all the support. So along with folks on Patreon, our super chats from YouTube, buy me a coffee. Here's the leaderboard. Jason continues to lead. And the simplest way to support us, like, subscribe, hit that bell icon so you don't miss any of our programs, and Grid Network TV across social media. And Matthew, I know after today's race, you're going to be busy recapping it for gridnetworktv.com. This is going to be very exciting. It's the first mile and a half oval for the 2025 playoffs. Second race in the round of 12. This racetrack in particular, we know 2311 probably has been looking forward to this because of their history of Bubba Wallace getting a win here, Tyler Reddick. That 45 car team, always one to watch. You then look at Toyota in general. The front row, Chase Briscoe, again on the pole, Denny Hamlin in the front row. Then you have Bill Wallace and Ty Gibbs all in the top 10. For Toyota, especially considering what happened last race weekend between the teammates of Denny Hamlin, Ty Gibbs. You even have Christopher Bell in that mess as well too, but he was just more wrong place, wrong time, but still had a bit of an impact. This might be a good race weekend to see them move forward from that, considering the speed they showed in qualifying. However, I have to ask this though, because in qualifying, we saw Jeff Gluck mention on X how Ty Gibbs actively was avoiding the media in qualifying. He did not want to take questions. When he sort of ran off, Bob Pockrass was the fastest man who could try to keep up with him, but then Ty wanted to avoid the media, just went ahead, got in a golf cart, did not answer any questions. Considering we're talking about something that happened back in Sunday last week, we have it where you're all in the top 10. Why do you think Ty wanted to avoid the media, and is this a bad move on his part?
Yeah, Joe, thank you for having me. Shout out to Tanner's actually at Kansas, so that's why it's just the two of us here today. But yeah, it's one of those things that it's a lot of the times it's better to not say anything instead of saying something and making it worse for yourself. And I believe even Denny Hamlin kind of apologized more or less and was like, yeah, I shouldn't have made certain comments that I did. But Ty Gibbs clearly is avoiding the media at all costs. I think he took a trip to the White House. He's been doing other trips and stuff like that. So he's been a busy guy avoiding the media. But it just doesn't look bad when you have a 22, 23-year-old driver, Joe Gibbs Racing, the only non-playoff driver on that team that is literally like running away and driving away from media who just want to ask. And granted, too, if you're Ty Gibbs, you don't want to answer those questions. That was 7 days ago. Why are we going to continue talking about it? That's probably his mentality. And plus, Kansas has not been his best track at the Cup level. I know he's been decent there in every other series he's competed in, but he has like 4 finishes of 28th or worse or something like that here at Kansas. A lot of that's just not good luck. So I think he just wants to focus on trying to get that first career win. So the last thing he truly wants to be discussing is New Hampshire and getting sent in the corner and ending his day by his teammate, who is still running for a championship. So it's one of those things, Joe. It's like, yes, it is kind of a bad mood, or bad move, not bad mood. He is in a bad mood, but it is a bad move to avoid the media. And I know he's going to be asked it again today. It's like an inevitable question that's going to come his way. It's like, how do you handle this at Kansas, starting in the top 10 with three of your teammates all inside the top 10 as well? It's coming for him within the next. It's 12 Eastern time right now. He's going to get that question in the next 3 hours. So he's definitely knows how to answer it. He's obviously PR trained enough. It's just he just doesn't want to. And I think the more off he ignores it, the worse off it's going to be for him. And especially it's not a great look for Joe Gibbs Racing either, right? So we'll see what happens. But yeah, I would probably want to avoid the media too if this all happened. But then again, he could have taken her out and say, yeah, made some comments. I apologize. I'm really just looking for, I know he said last week, just looking forward to having a great race. That's almost too PR-y. I feel like you got to throw a little bit of yourself in there and just be like, hey, unfortunate incidences occur, but just looking forward to getting this race. Hopefully we can leave that in the past, and I apologize for my actions or something. That little phrase could really go a long way. Probably not for his haters, but in general.
That's the thing. I think when it comes to Ty Gibbs, if he had put a little extra, maybe not so much the haters out there, because there are just people that just, I think, will not support him just because of the family connections and, what he's done in his past. People bringing up, well, you raced Brandon Jones really hard and ruined a potential Gibbs half of the time Final Four. Mm-hmm. And then he had a comment that made people even more unhappy. So I think he has to learn that you're going to have these situations. You're going to be a top caliber Cup Series driver. You're fighting for championships and you have missed opportunities. You're going to get questions you really don't want to answer. If you have to avoid the media about, hey, what's it like starting around your teammates? I think that's a simple answer of, hey, it's good that all the Joe Gibbs cars are running well and blah, blah, blah throughout the sponsors. And we're going to go forward and win this race. You don't need to try to be like a Kyle Busch with snarky answers. And we don't see Kyle Busch doing that much. I think that was Kyle Busch's own personality. Be yourself, Ty Gibbs, but at the same time, you got to go ahead and learn from your mistakes. And I'm hoping he's learning from that. Matt, you got additional thoughts on that?
Yeah, just one funny thing. Before I ever started at Grid Network, one of my first ever stories I had written in any type of publication, NASCAR, was Ty Gibbs when he was in Xfinity, and I said it's time to embrace that villain role. And this was 2022 Ty Gibbs. I want to retract that. I don't think Ty Gibbs needs to embrace that villain role right now. I think he's really got to figure himself out. And because granted, I mean, he was winning and kicking butt every week in Xfinity, including moving his own teammate, Kansas winner. Shout out Brandon Jones winning at Kansas again yesterday. But yeah, it's just one of those things with Ty. I think if he started winning in a cup, which I truly believe that's a dam, and he's going to break that dam, he's going to win a lot of races in a cup career. I am truly probably the only confident person in Ty Gibbs right now. But for him, sorry, it's like I repeat the same thing every single show. I think he will win, and I really do. But for him to be the villain, you don't want to go down that Kyle Busch route. I know you're substituting for Kyle Busch, right? You took over his legacy in that Joe Gibbs Racing car, and you have not done much of anything with it yet. I think he can, and I think he will. It's inevitable, but you can't, like with your Ty, he's doing a lot of stuff right now at 22, 23 years old. It's really good that he's getting it out of the way now. So when it comes down the line, I think that will be the past in the past. But for him, I don't think it's time to embrace the villain role until you become, I guess, really successful. Like, I think Denny Hamlin's a perfect person to embrace the villain role. I think Joey Logano is a perfect person to embrace that villain role. Because they hate him because they win. They don't hate him for other reasons, more or less. They hate him because they win. I think Ty Gibbs is at a point where a lot of people hate him for a lot of other reasons because he's not winning. So I think he will, but I just wanted to add that. I thought it was funny. One of my first ever stories I've ever written about NASCAR was Ty Gibbs, it's time to embrace the villain role. And now looking back at it 3 years later, it's like, oof, why did I write that? But yeah, just that's all I wanted to add.
And you bring up a really good point. Kyle Busch winning all the time, getting the flag from the fans. Joey Logano winning all the time. Some people even just don't like how he says, if you're behind me, you're my friend. If you're ahead of me, you're my enemy. And I'm going to use the bumper. I got to win for the team, for my family. But Ty Gibbs is like, just don't put yourself to be a villain just because of the way you handle stuff and how you handle yourself on the track, and you don't win. Go out there, get those wins. I just think he could learn a lot, especially if he keeps working with Hamlin, Bell, the team. We saw that potential last year, how I felt that was his best year. Atlanta in the playoffs, he could have gotten that race win. I think he'd been a much different story compared to where he is this year, and just focus on getting better performances and building up for next year. And I think maybe also stay out of the way of Denny Hamlin a little bit. Can't hurt. Of course, Denny Hamlin in the Toyotas, when you look at the top 12 positions, it is scattered with Chevrolet and Toyotas. The first Ford you see on that grid is Josh Berry in 13th place. Then you have Gregson Busher in 14th, 15th. And then it's just interesting because then you see, okay, there's Ryan Preece. Well, wait a second. Where are the rest of the Penske drivers? Well, you have to go down once you start finding behind Todd Gilliland, by the way. Austin Cindric, 26. Right behind him, Cole Custard. Go further down. There's where you're going to find Joey Logano, 35th. Second to last out of 36, normal 36 field. Of course, we have 37 cars. Who's in that 37 spot? Ryan Blaney crashed in practice. Had to go to a backup car, so didn't get a set of lap. Going to be starting dead last, considering just last Sunday he was on top of the world, winning at New Hampshire, the Mobil 1 3-1. Is Ford, especially Austin Cindric, where we know his position in the playoff cut line, are they in trouble for a rough race today and liable to lose positions in the playoffs?
It's tough, honestly, because I feel like the manufacturer debate that we all have here, it's like, yes, a lot of the races are Chevy or Toyota, but Chris Buescher can pull one out to get it done. And Ford in general, I think if Ryan Blaney was starting anywhere not 37th, if he was starting even 30th, I would still be like, yeah, I think he's got a legitimate shot to win. And I think even from 37th, Ryan Blaney is on such a hot streak that I believe he will finish in the top 10. But yeah, looking at guys too, like Cindric, I would worry about, just because kind of like how we worried about 2311 last week, not really doing well and then starting back. Cindric is one of those guys I feel like everyone keeps counting him out every round that he's ever been in the playoffs, and he somehow will always make it to the next round. And he's near the cut line. I believe it was 17 to 19 points below. But that's when you're that far back and you're starting behind guys like Ross Chastain, Tyler Reddick, Bubba Wallace, you're automatically going to take the green flag and you're going to be behind them again. So he'll immediately, Cindric, as soon as this green flag drops, Cindric will drop from 10th to 12th in the playoff standings, just the live standings, just the way it goes. So it is a little worried for Ford. Obviously, they did win last week, and we all talked about with how Toyota won the first 3 rounds, and then Penske came out. We're going to say, well, is this going to be one of those rounds like Joe Gibbs and Toyota had, where Penske comes out and Logano and Blaney win 3 of the races, right? But it's not looking like that is going to happen, and I don't think it will. Logano even starting 35th, not the best, and then Cindric being the best of the Penske drivers starting 26th. It's one of those things that's like a little worrisome for Ford, but then again, you have a lot of talent with guys like Buescher's really not a bad driver at this track, looking at the results Logano's really not bad here, average finish-wise. And then Ryan Blaney's not bad here. So those are 3 guys I would look out for in the Ford camp. But yeah, it is pretty crazy, Joe, that Chevrolet and Toyota locked out the first 6 rows of this event. So with Josh Berry being 13th. So yeah, that's how I'd say it's one of those things. I wouldn't be worried about them losing too many spots in the playoff standings, right? Because I think Cindric is the only Ford currently out. Yes. And then Logano's got a pretty good gap to Chastain at the moment. And then, well, there's really only 3 Fords left. So the worst case scenario is you lose 2 of them in this round. And best case scenario, honestly, it's looking like you're only going to lose Cindric. So we'll see what happens. I'm interested to hear how you feel about the manufacturer, like Ford just not being the odd one out, it seems like, at this type of track, it's specifically this race.
I mean, that's the thing at this track. I mean, we know how close Chris Buescher was to getting a win here. They thought they had it won. It was that close. I thought, okay, we'll see Blaney in the top 10 at least. Logano, top 15. No, we didn't see that. We saw front row got up there. That was a surprise. Josh Berry, he has the speed. It's just putting together a race for the results has been the weakness of that team. Maybe this last race weekend where they got second place around a 1.5 mile oval, similar to how he won in Las Vegas, maybe now they got that momentum. But it was just a shock to me to see the struggles. And when you're looking at multiple, not just Noah Gragson, that's it. We're talking Todd Gillian was ahead of Logano. Cole Custer was right behind. I mean, and they're switching to Chevrolet, so they're probably getting little to no Ford help. I mean, something's amiss, so I think they're might be in a bad spot. The big thing is with this race, if we have what we've seen in the trend, multiple cautions, you get an early caution, okay, pit, what do we need to do to make the car better? And work on it. That could be their hope. Overall, when it comes to this, the way I'm looking at it is you got the Toyotas up front. I think they're easily going to be contending for the win. The Chevrolet drivers have won the last 3 races here. Kyle Larson won this race earlier in the year and in 2024. And of course, as I mentioned at the top of the show, Ross Chastain won here last year as a non-playoff driver in the playoffs. Now, Kyle Larson, in the race, he's going to be starting 3rd. So easily the best Chevrolet up there. And then alongside him, Chase Elliott. You also got non-playoff driver of Carson Hocevar 6th, Ross Chastain 9th. I mean, then of course we talked about the Toyota drivers already, mainly Joe Gibbs, 2311's up there. Before we talked about how it seems like they might be in trouble. So do you consider Chevrolet then equal to Toyota, or is Toyota still the favorite this weekend?
That's tough. Also, shout out that Jones boy. Look at Eric Jones. And
yeah.
I love to see that. I think watching those legacy cars, specifically like Eric Jones, John Hunter Nemechek, succeed, I think that's great for the sport because they're a 3rd-team Toyota team, and those guys quietly have really good runs. They've come a long way. But yeah, in terms of Chevrolet and Toyota being, I would say yeah. I don't think Toyota's the favorite anymore. I think when we had that stretch of, what was it, Kurt Busch, Denny Hamlin, Bubba Wallace, and then I think Denny Hamlin again, and then Tyler Reddick winning Kansas like 5 or 6 races or something between those guys. We were like, this is Toyota's track. And then we failed to realize that all those races, Kyle Larson was up there literally every single time. And so I think Kyle Larson is the main reason why Chevrolet is up there with Toyota at these type of tracks. Because I think Denny Hamlin, 4 total wins here. I don't know if that's the most all-time at Kansas, but it's pretty damn close. So I think he's like that it guy for Toyota at this track, and then Larson's right there with him in terms of success. And those two, I really believe deep down that it's going to be one of those two that win this race. not sure who it's going to be, or we could have a Bristol situation where those two are the favorites and they poop the bed during that race. So, yeah, it's tough too because Briscoe, Kansas is not Briscoe's track, but once he gets in that Joe Gibbs equipment, literally you could throw away everything he's ever done with Haas. Like Briscoe is a completely different driver, and when you give him the equipment, he is incredible at racing. So I apologize for getting him out in this round in my predictions. I didn't know he was going to lock in like this. So, yeah, he's helping Toyota clear here. I think he finished fourth, the one that Larson led practically the whole race last time out. But then you have even Chase Elliott, right? He's up there. I don't think he's won here, but he's definitely been a contender every time. He has one of the lowest average finishes here. Even Carson Hocevar is pretty good odds for a non-playoff driver at an event like this. So maybe he could get that first win. But then you look at the Toyota, I'm not going to say the back end guys, but Ty Gibbs hasn't won a race. He's shown a lot of pace in practice qualifying. Eric Jones is up there. And then we don't talk a lot about Tyler Reddick's obviously the only playoff guy without a win, but Tyler Reddick on these intermediate tracks, specifically with 2311, is incredible. Whether you go to Homestead, whether you go to Kansas, Tyler Reddick is always a threat at these types of tracks. So it wouldn't shock me one bit if he was up in victory lane as well. So I would say truly that Chevrolet and Toyota are equal at this track just because of, and then even Bell's really good here too. I didn't mention him, but it's one of those things like if it's not a Denny Hamlin dominating this race or a 2311 car, it's Kyle Larson and Hendrick. So it's just, and then quietly it's Ross Chastain and Trackhouse, which he is the only Trackhouse driver I would think would win at this race. No offense to Shane Van Gisbergen or Daniel Suarez, but obviously the way it's played out, yeah, we know what's going to happen. So, yeah. Sorry for the long answer, Joe, but I truly believe this might be one of the most equal. I would argue this is even more equal than like super speedway racing. Like I think Chevrolet and Toyota are so entwined at this track that it's always one or the other. And now we say all this, Joe, and then we're going to be on the post-race show being like Ryan Blaney out of nowhere or someone like Chris Buescher just comes and wins for Ford. But yeah, I really think Chevrolet and Toyota are equal at this track, and I would not give either of them an edge over the other.
I would agree, especially I feel Toyota, they'll have the speed where I will not be shocked if Chase Briscoe, Denny Hamlin lead and control stage one. If stage one somehow goes caution-free, it's going to be a Toyota winning the stage, in my opinion. You might have Kyle Larson in the top 5. Chase Elliott could be in the top 10. But I think you're going to see a lot of Chevrolet Toyotas up there. For Ford, I think it's going to be the second and the third stage where you might see them coming up a little bit, but at the end of the day, for Chevrolet, the pit strategy, if Kyle Larson's second and we have a late caution with Cliff Daniels on the top of the war wagon there, I think he could put his driver in a good spot with that pit crew. Up front, use the clean air, get that win. Chase Elliott might be able to do that. I think there's a lot of potential for Chevrolet to get a win, but I think it'll be more the strategy aspect and making sure they're still running in the third stage. You cannot have mistakes from Kyle Larson getting to the wall, mistakes of, mechanical issues. They have to be perfect. I think it might be a 2-horse race between Chevrolet and Toyota drivers. But I think on the pace itself, Toyota has that advantage. Now, something interesting, since we've been talking a lot about Chevrolet, Toyota, and we talked about Ford's struggles so far this week, and particularly Penske. When you look at the starting lineup, which we have up, of course, Josh Berry right there. He is the highest starting Ford driver. And he's utilizing Penske equipment. You then have, as I mentioned, front row, RFK, pretty much a bunch of the Ford drivers. Up until then, you finally get to Logano and Blaney, the last two Fords, on the second page. Now, earlier this week, it was very interesting how Brad Keselowski, I believe it was on either Corey LaJoie's or Dale Earnhardt's podcast on Dirty Mo Media, talked about his thoughts on the next-gen car and how it creates what he calls a of manufacturer supports. Essentially, what he is claiming that without the testing sessions, without so much practice, they're so limited on practice, you essentially have a reliance on the manufacturers for data. And that data first goes to Gibbs for Toyota, Hendricks for Chevrolet, and Penske for Ford. Creating a tier system where they're the ones that get the data first, then everyone else. And with that lack of practice, that lack of going out and testing, you just really can't work your way up. You're sort of stuck in that level. It's interesting. It sort of remind me of, we'll talk in the wrap-up show, MotoGP. You got the factory teams and then the satellite teams, which may get a year older bike. Is this a fair statement by Brad Keselowski on comparing what he calls his tier system and how it's impacting the racing quality and the ability for teams to move up?
Yeah, I don't think Brad Keselowski has ever said anything more factual, to be honest with you. It's funny, I actually sent this, I think it was Corey LaJoy's podcast. Pretty much all our Grid Network guys, Tanner, Ben, I don't know if I sent it to Kobe, but I sent it to you, and I sent it to Jonathan as well, sorry. And all of us, for the first time, I think, agreed on this statement, and I think that was pretty funny. But yeah, I think you are going to see, I think this is also good, too, because you're going to see teams and drivers become almost independent, and I think it welcomes the idea of a different manufacturer more. I think Colleague jumping ship to go to Ram, specifically for the trucks, was the best thing this team is probably going to do. And besides signing AJ Allmendinger was obviously one of their best things. But when you look at the way this works with even Chevrolet, right? You have Hendrick, and then you have, I guess, Trackhouse, then maybe RCR, then maybe Colleague is just, there. Why not go from a fourth-tier team in your manufacturer to the number one team of a new manufacturer? I think it makes perfect sense. And I would say, I don't know I really don't know. This is all speculation, right? I wouldn't be surprised if Brad Keselowski would be a guy to jump. That's the issue is Roush has been with Ford for longer than I've been on this planet. But if Brad had Brad Keselowski racing that wasn't tied to RFK, I truly believe Brad Keselowski would jump ship and go back to Dodge to end his career, or Ram. I really do believe that. And it's a statement like that makes you open your eyes and think it makes a lot of sense. And now you look at Toyota as one of those specific teams. You have Gibbs, you have 2311, then Legacy. However, if you know about Legacy, they're really building their program from scratch. They are not taking that same data. They're getting their own because they know down the road, if they build their own data, if their top tier team that they get all the data from switches manufacturers like a Gibbs, I don't know if Gibbs would leave if Honda came in or something. They made a splash, obviously, when Toyota came in. Maybe they leave for Honda in 4 or 5 years. I don't know that. But what I do know is Jimmy Johnson is doing a very smart thing and building his own setup with Toyota, because if that were the case, he doesn't lose all that extra data. He gets his own and he can see it. So you're going to see that, I think, a little more with the manufacturers coming in. If we do end up 4 or 5 in Cup by 2030, which would be great, but I don't know if any of the current Cup teams would leave, as in like the manufacturers. I think Chevrolet, Toyota, and Ford are going to be around for a very long time. But you don't know if Honda comes in. You don't know if Dodge and Ram come in to make it a 5 OEM sport. I think that would be truly awesome. And it would show so much parity. You'd have 5 teams getting the top tier data instead of 3. So for that, I think it's truly a fair statement. I think even you see more of a balance, and I think the next gen has done a good job at. There's a lot of different cars that win now, but at the same time, I think there's been at least 25 to 27 different race winners in the next year, which is pretty cool in 3 years to have that many different drivers win. But it's pretty much except Ty Gibbs, every top tier team driver has won at least 1 or 2 races apiece, and then 2311 and has a couple wins apiece. Even Colleague has a win. RCR's got a lot of wins, not recently, but besides Austin Dillon. So Yeah, sorry for my long point again, but I think it's a very, very fair statement from Brad Keselowski. I think he's speaking the truth. I think it's important that a lot of team owners like Denny Hamlin and Brad Keselowski are two co-owners that drive for they don't. Brad drives for his own team. Denny obviously doesn't. But it shows that there's different perspectives. And if you have these guys speaking out saying this is what's occurring, I think it's really important that this happens. And it kind of gives fans and supporters, even the media, an educated perspective on what actually goes on behind the scenes. So for Brad Keselowski saying, yeah, we're really just a B or C team and our manufacturer with Ford, maybe he's saying that because they haven't won, but I don't think that. I think he's saying that truly because that's what goes on, and that's why you see Joe Gibbs and Hendrick and Penske kick butt every single week, regardless of if they have a bad week. Their bad weeks are still better than every other team's good weeks. So it's just one of those things, Joe. So I think it's awesome that Brad's speaking out about it. Denny Hamlin's got a lot going on with NASCAR to probably speak out about that at the moment. But, yeah, I'm interested to see if there is a switch when there is a fourth OEM coming in. Or, how everything with the charter system, too. The sport could be upside down by December. Everything could change. So I don't know that yet, but we'll see.
Everything could change, and I do have to say, I agree. I think this was a fair statement by Brad Keselowski because when he was saying this, I was thinking a lot about Richard Childress Racing. That team in the 80s, early 90s with Dale Earnhardt Sr. was the lead Chevrolet team for everybody. I mean, they had backing from GM themselves through the GM Goodwrench sponsorship. And you also look at Roush Racing back then. You could say that was the Ford team of the mid-90s following Junior Johnson's team when they were with Ford. But then that all really changed when here comes the multi-car era and Rick Hendrick started winning a lot. Yes, Roush was winning a lot. Now it has evolved to where Hendrick is still that number one Chevrolet team. And I will not agree to anyone saying RCR is that second Chevrolet team. No, that is Trackhouse. Spire is running better than them. I mean,
Spire too.
There's a lot of teams in Chevrolets that I feel, and then it just goes back to, well, what's Richard Childress doing? Is he waiting for potentially Dodge to come in through a Cup Series program? Maybe after Ram? That could be some hope because I just don't see how they're going to climb up to be on the same level as Rick Hendrick if their data is that hard to get. I mean, Roush Fenway, we've seen how it went from that 5-car effort, then to a 4-car effort, championships, then a 3-car effort, then a 2-car effort, and now it's RFK because they got another partner with Brad Keselowski. Brad Keselowski, I think, is going to bring new perspective. I don't know how much longer Jack Roush is going to be saying, I'm going to be very hands-on with this team. He might be soon retiring. I don't see him saying, I'm going to be loyal with Ford as long as I have, because right now you're clearly not that Ford team. Penske's ahead of you. I mean, Penske does not seem like be going away, and really they got a 4th car with Josh Berry, which is interesting because a lot of people will say, well, Hendrick and Gibbs have 4 cars and nobody else does. Well, technically, Penske does through the 21 team. They work really well together. Mm-hmm. It's something where I just don't see Jack Roush saying, hey, Honda's coming in or Dodge is coming in. We're going to stick with Ford because they've been loyal to us. No, that's changing. I think Brad Keselowski was pointed out there, and this could totally change if Honda comes in. Who will go where? I mean, that'll be interesting to follow. And then if the Ram program with the trucks leads to an eventual Dodge program, the Cup, with the charters, I'm really curious if maybe it will see something where it might end up like a structured, okay, each manufacturer has that one factory team I wouldn't call the other teams satellite teams. They'll still get the data. They're not getting used equipment like in MotoGP, but you will clearly have, like Breck said, that B team, maybe that C team, but there's still a little bit more parity. It's not year-old equipment, we're assuming.
Joe, just to add to that, I think from before this whole charter agreement, I believe NASCAR was always trying to save those 4 extra charters. So there are 40 charters in the system. Now I guess it's all messed up. I guess it's 30 with 6 that are not, because 2311 front row are open cars. But there were the 4 that they were specifically saving, I believe, for a new OEM. So it makes you wonder too, if we have the 4th or 5th OEM come into the sport by the time 2029, 2030 at the cup level, if the starter system exists, that's the theoretical part, you would possibly see 40 cars per race. So I think people should almost welcome that. And obviously, everything we say right now is clearly dependent on that December whatever trial date, what happens with this organization, with the governing body of the sport. But yeah, I think, like you had mentioned, that's what I just wanted to add. I believe that was the role. I wish Tanner was here. I know he's at the Speedway. He'll help us out when these questions. He knows a lot about this charter system. But I believe it was the 4 extra ones were for a new OEM. So yeah, I think it would be really interesting with all the new data coming in all those sports if those teams would jump ship. Don't know why Haas is going to Chevrolet to be a 17th tier team with that cup. Maybe it's because the Xfinity program, the Junior Motorsports, is obviously a powerhouse right now, so maybe that's why they want to join Chevrolet. And then even RCR is really good in Xfinity too. But yeah, I just wanted to add that. I think that was an interesting thing. So maybe we'll see 40 cars per race sometime in the future, or maybe not. Maybe NASCAR won't exist. We don't know.
You bring up a good point with Cole Custer and that team going over to Chevrolet. I mean, we see how there's 47, Junior's team, single car effort. And I feel this year, there's really not a whole lot. They started off impressively for a single car team, but then it just faded. And here we are in the playoffs. And I feel most time when we're talking about them is because, something happened on the track. And we're still waiting to see if anything will happen between him and Carson Hocevar, too. That hasn't happened yet, but I feel that's a good example of, okay, is it going to make that big of a difference switching over from Ford to Chevrolet? Yeah. Time will tell, but it'll be interesting, especially as we know Honda is not exactly the most happy with IndyCar. NASCAR welcomed him. Dodge, it's a positive sign. Let's see what happens. And Brad Keselowski could easily be that driver team that says, hey, we'll switch to Dodge because now that gives you 3 cars, Dodge equipment, and if we're the top, we're going to be good. So it'll be really interesting to see how this all falls. So we encourage everyone to comment with your thoughts and opinions on this. Was Brad Keselowski spot on or off spot, essentially saying that we have a tier system with the manufacturers in NASCAR? Now, Kansas, this track can be notorious. So I feel while we talked about Toyota and Chevrolets could be up front all day, the cautions are going to be coming on. That's going to involve cars. That could be easily Toyotas and Chevrolets. And then a Ford comes up there, gets better, and gets a win. Because since 2021, every race has had at least 7 cautions. Last year, 10 at this event. The last time a race had fewer than 5 cautions. So we're not even talking about that 7 number. Just 5. 2018.
Great.
Just nuts considering that means you get the 2 stage break cautions, but still 2018, there's still 3 more cautions. And since then, add in at least 2 more. And some of them, like I said, 10. I think even 1 year, 11. We know the Penske drivers are starting towards the back. Could this help them, knowing that if we have multiple cautions, this is opportunities for them to get their cars better, assuming no mistakes?
Yeah, absolutely. I think people fail to realize last year with all those cautions, right? That took Hamlin out, it took Larson out. Those are the 2 best guys at this track. So that creates that parity for someone like Ross Chastain to come out north. But Penske is definitely that type of team in the playoffs. It's like they have this new burst of energy that gets into their system. That specifically, I'm looking at Ryan Blaney here. Ryan Blaney hasn't won here, but he is probably the best driver in the sport right now in terms of what he's been able to accomplish. He's been finishing in the top 10 literally every single week. I think we continue to overlook the fact that I think he has at least 8 top 10s in a row, or 7 of 8, or 8 of 9, something like that. So Blaney, I don't care where he starts. If it's 37th today, but regardless of where he starts, Blaney will find a way to get to the front. And I think if there are a lot of cautions, I don't think Blaney had really car issues, as in more just blowing the tire and smashing the wall that took him out. I just think it's incidents that occurred. I think the Penske cars are going to have pace. I don't know about Cindric. I am a little worried about Austin Cindric, but he's one of those guys you count him out and then he's randomly in the top 5. That's how Austin Cindric races. I respect it. He clearly another person that's continuously overlooked every year. So for him, for the Penske cars, I think it would help the drivers starting in the back, like a Brad Keselowski, who's not bad here. Kyle Busch is really good here, too. I know it's been a long time since he's won here, but he's starting back. Zane Smith, please keep an eye on Zane Smith today. He ran really well here last year. He runs really well here in general. I think Zane Smith, if any Ford, can be a complete sleeper. Like not a Chris Buescher, who's been good here in the past, who's expected to run well. Not Josh Berry, who's in Penske tier equipment. But Zane Smith is truly a guy I think we should watch today to be a top 15, top 20 contender. And even guys like Noah Gragson really doesn't race that bad here either. So he's starting up towards top 15. I wouldn't be surprised if Front Row had a couple top 20 race cars today. Maybe, I'm trying to think. I don't know about Todd Gillen, no offense. But I think let's make a bold prediction that I think Front Row gets 2 cars in the top 20. Heck, maybe even 3. So it kind of shows that if you can build the cars that more need to build on the adjustments, whether it's a wide adjustment, track bar, all that stuff, to make the car faster, those teams starting in the back, a lot of cautions do really help in the long run. And I think for those teams who probably need more speed adjustments than Penske, who just needs track position, I think it will be a very chaotic race. But it could be one of those things, Joe, where we expect a wreck fest and we get a snooze fest. I hope not. The first Kansas race this year was absolutely one of the most boring things. And that's just because Kyle Larson kicked everyone's butt. But no, this race, when it's in the playoffs, Kansas creates chaos. So I think if they were to one day move Kansas to one date, you have to keep the playoff date because the other date's just boring and people will hate Kansas. But I think if you keep Kansas in the playoffs, it's super exciting to be a 1.5-mile oval. So I think with the possibility for multiple cautions, I know we'll touch a little on strategy too. Guys that might need that are starting closer to the front, that it might help out too. I'd keep an eye out on Carson Hocevar, too. He had the pace in practice. He had the pace in qualifying. And look at him. So maybe strategy. He had a race. He was running really well up front. Then tire blew. So Carson Hocevar is, I think, itching closer to that inevitable win. And that Spire car could be one of those things where multiple cautions help in his favor, just like I believe they will help the Penske guys today, too.
Yeah, the cautions is going to be very interesting. Looking at the weather, I pulled it up. We're looking right now, it's 79 degrees Fahrenheit over at Kansas Speedway. It's going to get up to 85 degrees about 2 p.m. The hottest will be 5 p.m., 87 degrees. So by then, I'm assuming we'll be done with and we're not in multiple overtimes. Hope not. But we're not talking about temperatures where it's super hot and track is going to be slick. I think this is just at the right temperature where you're still going to need to have a good handling car, but we're not talking cooler temperatures like under the lights where it looks visually great, but if you have a good car, good grip, you're going to run away like Kyle Larson did. So this could be a fun race. I think overall, if I'm the Penske teams, if that first stage goes caution-free, then I'll be nervous. Because it'll be like, okay, are we going to have a calm race? It's so hard because we've seen plenty of times. First 2 stages, nothing. Third stage, caution breeds cautions. they might just have to focus on, let's just get those positions when we can and stay on the lead lap. Don't go a lap down. If you do go a lap down, make it where at least you could get the free pass at the end of the stage. They're going to have a bit of a battle, and that's just one of the worries I think they're going to have to go through, because along with that, strategy. We know we got those stage ending cautions, so that's 2. But let's look at fuel mileage. You may want to see how the fuel mileage is going, especially if we get a green flag run, you make the pit stop. When will a caution comes out? Because sometimes we've seen it. Loose tire, here we are in a caution. So if you pitted, you might be in trouble, but depending on where you are and how many people pitted, you could be in a good spot. And then, of course, if the fuel window opens and we go green to the end and becomes a fuel mileage race, do you have enough fuel to end the race? Be worse if overtime comes, because then now you add in tire management. Will you have enough tires late in the game? Especially we have an overtime effort and everyone has to make pit stops. The last 2 races here have not ended on overtime, Matt. But the 2 prior did end under overtime. So how difficult will this race weekend be for crew chiefs given the numerous factors such as the strategy when it comes to fuel mileage, tires, when the caution comes, the trends of cautions, because there's no guarantee that trend will continue with the cautions.
Yeah, I personally think Kansas is one of the hardest races to prepare for, and I know that sounds silly, right? But when you look at how inconsistent this track seems to be, whether it's I know there's a lot of caution usually, but in terms of like the green flag runs, you really don't know what you're going to get. And it's kind of like Bristol in a sense too, where if you expect the tires to fall off the car, then they don't. But if you expect the tires to be fine, then they completely fall off the car. So it's one of those things where I think a truly great crew chief is going to help out with these guys like Cliff Daniels. That's why Kyle Larson, I think, is a favorite week in and week out, is because Cliff Daniels is one of the, if not the best in the business in terms of working specifically with his driver. And then you guys look at guys too. I'm just trying to remember crew chiefs off the top of my head. But Chris Gale and those guys with Joe Gibbs Racing, Denny Hamlin, work really, really well together. And I think that's one of those things where if they get it done, they seem to click and work on that strategy this season. But then there's a guy who I'd say is a sleeper pick. He has the second best average finish here in the Next Gen era, and I think he's finished in the top 10 here pretty much every time he goes here. Blake Harris and Alex Bowman, I think, will be a team to watch with Hendrick Motorsports. In terms of, I know a lot of people give Blake Harris a lot of crap for the way Bowman's races seem to strategy-wise. I think it's similar to how what Martin Truex and not Cooper. Who is Truex's? James Small. Sorry, I brain fart again. But yeah, it's like one of those things where it seems like they can run really well all race and then it falls apart. I think this is a race that whoever gets it, I think Alex Bowman is another guy to watch too. Whoever gets that strategy right heading into this race, the team who's going to have to make the least amount of changes and overhaul the strategy. Like there's probably 18 teams on the grid, and then there's the other 19. One's like, oh, we're going to prepare. It's going to be a green flag race, not a lot of caution. And the other ones are going to be like, prepare to run a little harder because you know they're going to be more cautious. So get that track position early. I think whatever teams get it right within the first 40 laps of this race, I think we'll be able to tell how the race is going to go in terms of their strategy. And I can say that, and then we'll have 7 cautions on stage 3. I don't know. But that's kind of my opinion on it is, and again, I don't know anything about it really, but just from my opinion, just looking at it, I think it will be a difficult race. But I think for the crew chiefs, and even though the trends indicate the multiple cautions like you had mentioned, we could very well see a green flag snooze fest, or we could very well see a yellow flag wreck fest, right? So it's ultimately it's one of those things you have to see it. That's what's going to happen. My chemistry teacher happened to be my uncle in high school too. Well, he's my uncle in general, but he's my chemistry teacher in high school. I definitely butchered that. But he always would say as a joke, I see it better when I see it. And I think that's the way you have to view this race, and the strategy is you just see it, whatever you see, that you're just going to have to adapt to that. But I think whoever gets it right out of the gate is going to be who we see in victory lane.
It's going to be a fun race, in my opinion, just because you got the playoff stakes. You got what I would say Penske in a bad spot. The strategy could become a big factor depending on the timing of the cautions. I mean, it's going to be a lot of fun this race. I'm very excited for it. And I know people, especially as schedule comes and goes and announcements and which track deserves 2 dates, if Kansas has to drop down to 1 date, keep it in the playoffs. This is definitely a playoff track. And I'll be okay if it was down to just a playoff race. Could be a good nighttime playoff race, but then again, it's just always so hard to see because you could always say one of the big things is with the cool temperatures under the lights, you may get a repeat of Kyle Larson dominating, but with that playoff factor, might be really interesting to see how it plays out. And of course, that's going to be 3 p.m. Eastern, NASCAR Cup Series on the USA Network. We're just about out of time, but before we do, let's go to pick a winner. The leaderboard had not changed this weekend because Marc Marquez did not win a race this weekend, and I'm pretty sure nobody picked Pecco Bagnaia.
Maybe Matt did, the other Matt.
Maybe Matt.
I think he was the only one, though, so that doesn't really change anything.
And of course, if you all saw on Grid tonight, we started putting a different Marc Marquez for every weekend sweep. It's just crazy he has this many weekend sweeps, Matt, of winning the sprint and the Grand Prix. Of course, now he's a 7-time champion. We'll talk a lot more about Marc Marquez on the wrap-up show and what he has done, clinching the championship. But when it comes to the Cup Series race, the Hollywood Casino 400, who do you see winning that race?
This honestly one of the toughest decisions for pick a winner. And a lot of it's she's trying to play arrow blocking with Kobe right behind me. He's right there, and we all have. I think the top 4 all have like the most pick a winner correct ever in a season, if I'm not mistaken. So pretty fun year for everyone here at Grid Network. But I was like, I think it's between Larson and I think it's between Hamlin. I went back and forth, literally so hard. And I keep getting it wrong on Grid Network, but I get it right in my family and friend league that we do for pick a winner. I'm going to go with this driver again. I think because last time I picked Kyle Larson at a track where I was sure he was going to dominate, he pooped the bed like I had mentioned. So he's great here, but I'm going to go with the other driver in that case who has done great here, but pooped the bed at Briscoe as well. Pooped the bed last time. I know it's a really weird saying, but obviously you can't say the I guess the real expression, right? I wouldn't say that on air. Maybe after the fact. But I'm going to go with, I think, Denny Hamlin. I think he's got the chip on his shoulder still. It's never left his shoulder since probably like 2005. But I think Denny Hamlin is in a prime position starting up front. Joe Gibbs Racing needs to bounce back after not a great couple weeks, besides Bell winning Bristol, but not a great New Hampshire race for that team. So I think with him, go out there, Denny Hamlin, win again, and continue. I think it'd be number 60. So it'd be really cool to see Denny Hamlin win number 60 at a track where he shares or is the record holder most wins ever. So it'd be historic for that organization. So I'm going to go Denny Hamlin over Kyle Larson, but I wouldn't be shocked if it was a 1-2 finish between those two guys.
A 1-2 finish between those two would not be a surprise. I'm going to go the Toyota route as well, too. And I'm going to go with the driver that won to get into playoffs, is going to win to get into the next round of 8. I'm going with Bubba Wallace. I think he could get it done. That pit crew overall is looking better. I think that team's looking good. It's just a matter of rebounding, putting New Hampshire behind you, coming out here strong, qualifying look promising. So Bubba Wallace is going to be my pick for pick a winner at Kansas Speedway. Now, before we do close out, we do want to update everyone. Earlier, we found out from Tyler Reddick's wife about an update from their son, Rookie. Of course, Rookie, brand new baby from them. This is what was shared to everyone. And I'm reading from their statement from Alexandria Reddick. After a run around for months with the pediatrician office, I knew what was going on was something bigger. Always trust your mom gut. Our sweet rookie was showing signs of heart failure that were being missed. Please, please pray for the sweet guy that God heals his heart. With God, Rookie, and his amazing doctors here at Levine, I believe he can. We are in the cardiovascular intensive care unit while we get some more answers and work on improving heart functions. I usually don't share our personal lives, but I'm hoping you take the time to pray for him today. That has to be hard for Tyler Reddick. But if there's one thing I do know, if he was to get that win, that would be a huge. The fans, I don't care if you're a Chevrolet fan, Ford fan, I don't like 2311. If Tyler Reddick was to get this win, knowing what he's going through with his family, that would be a popular win first of the year end. I know we're all sending our best wishes to the Reddick family, thinking of them on such a scary situation. I think, like I said, trust your mom good. Our parents, they always seem to have something where they always try to do the best for the kids. And yeah, we are thinking of everyone in the Reddick family and pulling for Rookie to get a big win out of this.
Yeah, absolutely. If I could add something too, it's one of those things too. Like we talk here at Grid Network, and you try to be careful about things you say, obviously. And like I think a lot of us have kind of been hard on Reddick because he hasn't won and stuff like that. But then you talk the talk here is just people having fun talking about a sport. But then you fail to realize that there are stuff that goes on behind the scenes. And when you have a 3 to 4 month old, your newborn baby going through the cardiovascular issues and stuff like that, it's horrible. And really, whether you're a religious person or not, send love, send your thoughts to Alexa, to Tyler, to Bo, to the entire family, rookies especially, because you never know. And it's definitely, life's not is all, I guess, sunshine and rainbows. Life it's difficult, and especially for that family right now, it's really hard. So I know we've said stuff about like Reddick in terms of not being on his A game. Well, he's clearly got a lot of stuff going on. So I want to apologize for that. But really just send all your love, your thoughts, if you're religious, send your prayers as well to that whole entire family. It's tough, and it would be really awesome if especially if Rookie can really recover, get healthy. But if Tyler Reddick could find victory lane, I think that would be an awesome thing for this sport, awesome thing for that family. So like I said, I just wanted to add to that, like what Joe said, on behalf of like Grid Network TV and really everyone, just want to send our thoughts and prayers to his family. It's definitely not a great thing, but wishing Rookie the best. Hopefully he gets strong. And if he's anything like Bo, he's anything like Alexa and Tyler, they're strong people over there. So sure, let's just hope he pulls through in a great manner. So wishing them the best.
Wishing them the best. And just want to correct myself. I said Alexandria Alexa. I misread the Instagram account username, so apologize for that. But definitely, you bring up a good point. Just because in motorsports, we are so focused on everything that goes on the track, the drama on the track, how it impacts it. We're also human beings. I mean, I know it's been discussed in our private chat. Just Cliff Daniels telling reporters recently how there's a lot of things that going on, from loved ones getting sick, direly sick, scares during birth giving, people having losses from, unfortunately, people passing away or even divorces. We're all human and we all have lives outside the track. And to commit 100% to motorsports and 100% to your family is such a balance that I know the media, we follow the sport, we report on the stories, but I think one of the things we always got to remember that these are human beings that are trying their best to support their families, their friends, and everything. And there's so many bigger battles off the track. And definitely thinking of Rookie when his big battle he has, and hopefully everything goes well. Of course, NASCAR today. After the race, we'll be on the air for the wrap-up program where we're going to recap the NASCAR Cup Series race and MotoGP They now got a 7-time champion in Mark Marquez. Plenty to talk about that, plus the updated grid ranking. So subscribe, hit that bell icon so you don't miss any of our programming. And of course, visit the website gridnetworktv.com. Check out Matthew's article. You can see all his past articles from 2025, years past. And Grid Endurance, follow that hashtag, Grid Endurance Performance Index. We had a crazy WEC race. We could see another change in the top 10. We want to thank everyone for tuning in, all our Patreon investors, and everyone that has contributed to the Grid Network. For Matthew, I'm Joe. Thanks for watching today's program. We'll see you next time, and enjoy the race.